want to talk this morning. I've mentioned her before, but it's my Aunt Esther. And she wasn't really my aunt. She was my mom's double cousin. Okay, brothers married sisters, and she was an only child on that side of the family. So she was at all the family gatherings, and it was easier for us to call her Aunt Esther. But she was one of those cantankerous people. Okay, that's just the nicest way I can put it. She was one of those people who saw your faults more clearly than you did, and she was all too happy to point them out to you. You know, and we as kids tried to avoid her because it would end up in a bad way if we ran into her at one of the family gatherings. But anyway, she married for the first time when she was 70, and she married a widower, and they actually had 20 years of marriage. And she lived, after he died, she lived for 11 more years. And my mom was her primary caregiver. And she would pick her up and take her to all of the appointments that she had. And She never had a nice thing to say to my mom. She never paid for the gas. When they had to pay for parking at the doctor's office, my mom had to pay. She never said thank you, and that's the way she was. And it really hurt my mom's feelings. Then she died, and I flew back to the States several years ago to do the funeral. And as we were gathered in the nursing home where she died in the big chapel area, and before the service started, I watched my mom. And my mom greeted everybody as they came in. She put her arm around people and shook their hands. And I realized then that more than my father, I got my pastoral gifts from my mom. And ironically, she's from a church where women can't be pastors. Anyway, after the service, I was talking to some friends of Esther, some people who went to church with her, and they said, Esther always spoke so highly about your mother. And she said how much she loves your mother. And I was shocked. And a few minutes later, I pulled my mom aside and told her this story. And she couldn't believe it. She had all of these wonderful feelings of love towards my mother and never expressed them. In fact, the only thing she could do was to express her criticism and her negativity. I talk about this today because today is the day we remember how life is so short, right? When your friend dies so quickly, we go through life as if we're going to be here forever, don't we? Well, I've got news for you. You're not going to be. And for some, it comes very quickly. And I tell people, never leave something till tomorrow that you could do today. And this is one of those things that we could do. My dad died when I was 44. That's 26, almost 27 years ago. And I came from a family where there was never "I love you," and there was never a hug. Never. Okay? The last time I saw my dad after their 50th wedding anniversary in Milwaukee Airport, he took me to the airport, and I gave him a big hug. And his arms were at the side. He was so tense and nervous. That's the thing I remember, and that's the last time I saw my dad. And I said, "I love you." And he couldn't say it back. We all knew that our parents loved us. But for them to be able to say something, or for them to be able to demonstrate it with a hug, would have been even more powerful. Sometimes I wonder how much more my life could have been if I had received a hug every day, or the words, "I love you." And I think the next generations, I complained about this at my dad's funeral, and my uncle said, "Your dad never got a hug. Your dad never got an "I love you" from his dad," and the generations go on and on. But now maybe we know better. We have to push aside those fears of saying the words, "I love you," and realize how powerful and important these words are. I don't know how many people that come and see me for counseling have an issue with one or both parents. And it's often the same thing. My parents didn't love me, or my parents never said, "I love you," or we never got hugs. Or if there was arguing and there was negative words, if there was anger from the parent to the child, it's very easy to interpret that my parents didn't like me, so obviously they didn't love me. I tell people this is a dangerous conclusion to come to. And it's a conclusion you probably shouldn't come to. That even though your parents were angry and said negative and critical words, if you believe that they loved you and were unable to say the words, that's much more powerful than to believe my parents just didn't like me. They didn't love me. In the gospel reading this morning, Jesus takes it even a step further. I say to you that, listen, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you and pray for those who abuse you. If anyone strikes you on the cheek, offer the other one as well. If anyone asks to take your coat, do even give him your shirt. And give to everyone who begs from you. If anyone takes away your goods, do not ask them again. Do to others as you would have them do to you. So Jesus says, do not just love your family and the people who are nice to you. Love your enemies. Pray for those who persecute you. Take things even a step further. But I would say to you first, do it to your families. Live today as if today is the last day of your life. And if you can say those words, if you can express those words, if you can write your children or your family members a letter, and if your children are estranged from you, write them a letter, write them an email, and say, even though you maybe didn't know it, I love you from the depths of my heart, and you will always be there in my heart. When people are in a palliative situation, I suggest that they write a letter to their children and or their grandchildren and express, we always assume that our children and our grandchildren know that we love them. Just say the words. Take the risk. And if you don't know if they're going to say it back to you, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Say the words. Do the things that need to be done now. And when you make that clear in your family, then the next step is an even harder step. To love your enemies and to pray for those who persecute you. Christians are called to a higher standard. This is the higher standard. Let's grab that standard. Amen. It's always sad when we remember those who have gone, but it's a time for us also to be grateful for the lives of those that we had. It may not have ended the way we wanted it to, maybe sooner than we thought it would, but to give gratitude. What did Paul say this morning? I'm grateful for you always in my heart. And that's how we approach today too, with gratitude. Joan Elder, Fritz Anderson, Becky Kemp, Al Schweitzer, Edgar Morrisette, Robert Tutkala, Harold Hameluck, Elsie Kelsey, Brenda Hanson, Raymond Fichter, Erwin Dahlman, Art Steinke, Ella Ashdown, Joyce Zachary, Bev Smith, Jay Lawrence, Joan McIntosh, Lorna Barton, Donna Whitta, Dorothy Allan, Dorcas Ekstrand, Wayne Beach, Brian Rumpel, Greg Selinger, Eileen Hippe, Peter Macleod, Joan Peters, Maggie Parascony, you may be seated. Let's extend our hands and sing the steadfast love one time to one another. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning, new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness. serve the Lord.
Thanks be to God.